Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala tayyibin at-tahirin. In the name of God, the Compassionate, the Merciful, I congratulate all of you for the birth anniversary of the 12th Imam, whom we believe that will come with Jesus, and they will be supported by truth-seeking and justice-seeking people from all nations and all ethnicities, and they will establish universal fraternity and peace and justice. So today we commemorated the birth of the 12th Imam, and I hope we gain from this session some more energy to work in that direction. I am also aware that we have some non-Muslim teachers whose presence is very much appreciated, and we are working together. We may have different attitude towards faith, but certainly we are the same in humanity and in our joint efforts for helping the next generation to become better people, better human beings. So I have been given
recording in progress.
Some introduction to your meeting and to the aim of this meeting, and I hope I got it right. I was given proper introduction, but I hope I understood it properly. So what I'm going to share with you is the way in Islamic education we look at the whole process of education and what different things we should aim at, and then in every area what are the priorities. So this hopefully will set up a framework for more detailed and more focused sessions in future. Right at the beginning, I have to say, and of course it's not many of the things that I say I think would be very common, and if you remove the names and some terms, I think you find many of these things common in some other schools of education, not in all, but in many schools of education which have either faith background or philosophical background, which goes back to Aristotle. We have lots of things in common. So in Islamic education, we are not aiming at passing on some information only. Unfortunately, many times we see that the focus is on giving information. They make sure that within the days and hours that they have, they will cover certain, for example, textbooks or syllabi, and make sure that those who graduate from the school or madrasa, they have learned these things. This is very important, and we don't definitely can have education without giving enough adequate, reliable information. But this is not the whole thing. It's not just a matter of giving to the students or trainee more information. We have a holistic approach to education. We believe that from every aspect of human development, we should help the students to grow. For sure, they need introduction to different disciplines, They need to be given tools for the sciences which need prerequisites, etc. We need to make sure that in a gradual process every year we give them what qualifies them for work or for higher education in future. Or when it comes to Islamic curriculum, we should make sure that by the time they finish the school or madrasa with us, they have a comprehensive information about their beliefs, about their ethics, about their history, about the practical laws that they have to observe. This is definitely part of it, but this is not the only part. If we only aim at giving information, then there is great risk that this can give us one-sided human beings who are strong in having information, but they don't know what to understand of themselves, what to understand of society, how to relate to each other, what type of virtues they should have. Therefore, we look at education as a comprehensive, holistic enterprise. And therefore, I am trying to list some areas that we should aim at. We should then narrow down each of these according to the number of years and then months and weeks, etc. But at the end, our success can be measured by how much we have made advancement in all these areas. We cannot be saying we are successful because we finished the books from cover to cover and they took exams and they passed the exam, so we are done. No, it's not just information. So I have divided the areas that we need to work on into the following. Of course, it's not very kind of new or exclusive to me. I think this can be a very general pattern, but maybe some people articulate it differently, but I articulate it in this way. One very important aspect is what I have called cognitive development, cognitive aims of Islamic education. This is very important. And cognitive is a matter of information and understanding. Sometimes people have information, but they don't necessarily understand the subject. Indeed, sometimes I say with a sense of humor that if you want to make someone unable to understand, either deprive him of information or give him too much information. The result is the same. They cannot make sense of what is happening. So, information doesn't guarantee understanding. It needs lots of other things. Like a person who has just graduated, for example, from medical school, and suppose they didn't have that much practice, and in internship also they didn't have that much practice, but they know all the textbooks, they can pass all the tests, but they have not actually independently seen the patients and worked with the patients. So they have information, but they may not understand what is happening. They may make big mistakes in their assessment. So cognitive aspect of education is very important, and for Islamic side, for a religious and a spiritual side, this involves few things. One is self-knowledge. For us, self-knowledge is the most beneficial knowledge, as we have in hadith. Ma'rifatun nafs anfa'ul ma'arif is the most beneficial knowledge. Self-knowledge is the key even to knowing God. Man arafa nafsah faqad arafa rabbah. Maybe you don't find any book on Islamic spirituality unless you find this hadith, that whoever knows or has known himself or herself has known his or her Lord. Nowadays, I think in the world we have a crisis of lacking self-knowledge. What we are as human beings. There are people who question our very humanity. There are people who look at us just as physical objects. There are people who think that we are not just we are just, kind of programmed robot, but with soft tissues. Everything is programmed, everything is predestined, and we can easily be replaced with robots who may be more efficient than us. There is lack of respect, lack of acknowledgement for humanity by many people, unfortunately, and many forces that govern market or govern media or industries. So to know ourselves and to know the great honor and dignity that is invested in every child of Adam is very important. This leads to self-esteem. This leads to confidence. This leads to self-respect and respecting others. Our scriptures say, whoever lacks self-respect would not be respecting others. Whoever is feeling honored and dignified within can extend this to others without. So, something that we should aim at is make them understand themselves, their potentials, their capabilities, their capacity, different faculties of the soul, and how much they can progress or how much they can degrade themselves. This is not just by, again, giving them some information about self-knowledge, is by making them really value themselves. Whoever has value for himself or herself would never do ugly actions. So, if someone studies with us few years, 5 years, 6 years, and graduates or moves for a higher level, must leave us with much deeper recognition of his or her own values, dignity. Must be much more confident, but not in a kind of arrogant way. Unfortunately, some people think that confidence means to be arrogant. Even we see people who in politics are super confident, and indeed this is not confidence. They are very weak inside, they are very vulnerable inside. They pretend to be confident, they are just arrogant. And arrogance is a sign of having no self-esteem. Harshness towards others is a sign of not knowing the value of yourself. Because if you know the value of yourself, then you see the same humanity is shared by others. It's impossible that I disregard other human beings and have regard for myself or for my family. It's impossible. Therefore, the Quran says, whoever revives one person is like reviving all human beings. Whoever kills one person is like killing all humanity. Humanity in me, humanity in you, humanity in every person is the same. So, self-knowledge is very important aspect of the cognitive part of education. And then knowing God. Although we study in aqaid God as a subject, and much of our aqaid hopefully is geared towards knowing God and attributes of God and actions of God. But what I mean is, again, not just to have information about God and to be able to mention all the, for example, arguments for existence of God. What I mean is to be conscious of God, to be aware of God, to be mindful of God. If I have awareness about my own value and awareness about God as the source of honor, source of beauty, source of perfection, source of love, I cannot go wrong. It's impossible. For someone who is conscious of his or her own value and dignity and conscious of presence of God, it's impossible to do something wrong. The Quran asks us to remember that God is always seeing us, watching us. Alam ya'lam bi'anna Allah yara. This is not by just having a theoretical knowledge. You tick, in the aqaid class, God is present everywhere, God is seeing and watching and hearing. No, it's by feeling the presence of God in our discussions, in our interactions, in the environment that we create in the classroom, in the prayer hall, in the assembly hall, everywhere. We should help them to develop consciousness of God as a support, as a lover, as a carer for us, as our nourisher, as our maintainer, as our sustainer, who at the same time has expectations from us, who wants us to be the best of ourselves, who wants to be most respectful to others. So this kind of consciousness of God would lead to love for God. And this is what I'm going to discuss in the second part, when I'm talking about the devotional aims. So, cognitive aims, knowing ourselves, knowing God, and in particular, knowing the lordship of God. The Quran very much emphasizes on God as being Rabb, being our Lord. I mean, He is the one who is in charge of every aspect of our being. Not only He creates us, but also He guides us. He sustains us. He helps us. He protects us. He forgives us. And if needed, He also questions us. He brings us to justice because He wants the best for each of us and for all of us. And then knowing the prophets and imams as true examples of people who had the best of self-knowledge and knowledge of God in theory, but more importantly in practice. We cannot have proper understanding of our relation with God without knowing His representatives and the examples and role models that He has provided us with. So they should learn over years. I'm not saying in 1 year everything should be learned, but over years we should plan in the way that they have proper knowledge, understanding, awareness of these issues. The second aspect is the devotional and spiritual and ethical aspects, which now is engaging our also heart, our emotions, our desires, our motivations, our traits of character. And this is very closely connected to the first one. The cognitive aspect prepares for the second one. And here I like to emphasize on love for God. If we have love for God, then it would be impossible to do bad things. If I know that my beloved wants me to be fair, wants me to be just, wants to be kind, to be giving and not selfish, then I would not do the opposite, because then I would know that I'm risking my relation with my beloved. Love for God is very important capital that as soon as possible we should get. And hope in God, a sign of balanced personality, which is the result of balanced education, is to be hopeful. We have no space, no room for despair. Despair is very destructive, individually and for the society. When you are despaired, you just become accepting and passive. You become a prey, a victim for others to work against your interest through you. We need to be always hopeful. For us, believers in Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, there is no way to be hopeless, because we have a great reserve of hope who is living with us, who is hearing us, who is watching us, who is loving us more than our fathers and mothers. So hope in God and through God is another aspect. So love for God, hope in God and through God, and having positive and optimistic assumptions about God. Husnul dhan, to have good opinion about God. This is very, very important. Imam Raza alayhi salam said, you must have good opinion about God. If you have good opinion, then you will see it coming true. And if you have negative opinion, you may see that comes true. If I say God is not going to forgive me, God is not going to be generous with me, to be kind with me. God is not going to help me with my children. God is not going to help me with my business. If I have negative opinion about God, there is great chance that this may happen. And if you have good opinion, then there is great chance that may happen. Of course, in some lectures I have explained that this is not by chance that people have good opinion or bad opinion. So don't think that you can force yourself to have good opinion. The only people who can have good opinion about God are the people who know God properly and have been living in a similar way. If I have not been forgiving people, I think also God is not going to forgive me. If I am a forgiving person, I think that God is going to forgive me. There is a great relation between how we act and behave and how we expect to be treated by God. Another thing which is very important is that if this love for God and hope in God and having good opinion about God, sorry, let me put my charger. If these aspects of devotional development come forward properly, then it would lead towards having khashya. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Those who have proper knowledge definitely will have awe towards God. They would have humility before God out of understanding His greatness. This khashya is very important for our personal development, because khashya towards God is the gate for becoming humble people. If in front of God I am humble, then before you also I can be humble. This is the place that you can improve and then try to keep this when you are walking in the society. And there is nothing more maybe dangerous than lacking humility, especially in interpersonal relations, but even with your with respect to yourself. If you are not humble, you don't accept the truth. You don't accept your mistakes. You don't accept you need correction. So it's very dangerous in every front. And then seeking the pleasure of God in everything we do. So we can, for example, teach them ahkam, fiqh, sharia, which is very important and we should do. But this needs something more underlying. Otherwise, they may learn and they may not practice. What is more underlying is that our life should be at the service of God, in search for His pleasure, or seeking face of God, as we have in Abrahamic faith. In Judaism, Christianity, Islam, we have this common concept of seeking the face of God. Everywhere, everything we do, everything we say should be an opportunity to seek the face of God, to seek His pleasure. If I have this attitude, then I myself will go and ask about practical rulings, ethical instructions. But if I am not equipped with this, even if I know them, I don't practice them. I don't bother about them. And then love for each other. Islamically, love for God only becomes mature only becomes adequate if it leads to love for the sake of God. If I just love God, but not people, not animals, not plants, not environment, this is not acceptable. Because these are all creatures of God. These are all signs of God. These are all manifestations of God. It's impossible that I truly love God and I don't love my fellow human beings. It's impossible to love God and not to love environment. So we should help them understand that love for God leads to loving for the sake of God. We have this beautiful hadith that God asked Moses, "What have you done for me?" Moses mentioned prayer, fasting, giving alms. But God said, your fasting has this benefit for you, prayer has this benefit for you, giving alms has this benefit for you. What have you done for me, for my sake? And Moses then didn't have any answer, so he said to God, "Dullani ala al-amal alladhi huwa lak." You please tell me, what's the action which is for you? And God said, "Hal walayta li waliyan wa adayta li aduwwa." Have you ever developed the relation of belonging to people because of me, love for people because of me, and disassociating people because of me? Or you did it only on your personal preference? If your relations with people is developed based on me, this is the action that I consider to be for me. فعلم موسى عليه السلام أن أفضل الأعمال الحب في الله والبغض في الله. Then Moses came to know that the best thing to do is to love for the sake of God. And if there is any person that you should keep distance from, is not because that person has been kind to you or unkind to you, has been your friend or enemy. No, leave aside all the personal things. If someone is enemy of God and humanity, you distance from them. Otherwise, everyone is a creature of God. Everyone is a person of God, and we should love them for the sake of God. Some people maybe more, some people maybe less, but there is no way to disregard any person who has our God-given nature or is our fellow in creation like other creatures of God. The enemies of God, the enemies of humanity, they are exceptions, and even for them, we love them to change. We love them to improve. It's not that we hate them and we want them to disappear. But the way to love a criminal is different from the way to love an innocent person. That's another issue that we have in Islamic ethics and Christian ethics. So, love for God, love for the sake of God, and truthfulness is a very fundamental value. If our students learn how to be seeking the truth and welcoming the truth when it is discovered and accepting to commit to the truth and act upon the truth, be at the service of the truth. These are all different aspects of truthfulness. Then they are guaranteed that everything else will come automatically. I believe truthfulness is the most fundamental value. And everything comes out of truthfulness. If we manage to help them develop truthfulness, we are succeeded in our mission. Everything else comes. And a key towards truthfulness is rationality. Unless you are rational, you cannot be truthful. Rationality is great quality, and you know how many times the Quran asks us to think, to be rational, and God complains people who don't think and don't act rationally. Then honor and dignity is another devotional aspect. Their roots are built in the first part, in the cognitive aspect, but the fruits of having sense of dignity inside and offering dignity and honor to others come here as fruits. And then team spirit, collective spirit, or what I call social wilaya. This is another aspect of devotional and spiritual development. No matter what they learn, even if it's maths or physics or chemistry, we should use every opportunity to create deep sense of collectivity, to have the mentality of we, not just me. And this is very important for future of our community and for humanity. That there are people who prioritize the common good over their individual good. This takes us to the discussion we have about social wilaya. And thirdly and finally, the behavioral aspect of development. Maybe this is what normally we put more focus on it, but I think this comes as a result of these two. And I want to emphasize on two things. There are many things that we can mention, but I want to emphasize on two things. One is prayer, and the other is charity. Our students should develop not only respect for prayer and charity, but passion and thirst for prayer and charity. If a day passes that they don't say their prayer properly, or they are not involved in a charity work, they should feel very sad. Even a single day should not pass unless you pray and you do something for others, for the needy people. The Quran summarizes every practice in these two things. وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ وَيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَذَلِكَ دِينُ الْقَيِّمَةِ. They have not been asked except to worship God while purifying for Him, turning towards the truth, and in particular mentions two things: establish prayer and give alms. This is the upright religion. Our religion, our faith is not upright unless it has two pillars: prayer and charity. If you pray more and say, exempt me from charity work, no. Or you say, I do more charity work, I'll give more alms, exempt me from prayer, no. We need both to have a balanced development. Our prayer is very important, but the way to purify ourselves is through giving alms. And as the Quran says, giving alms is a way for purification. The Prophet was asked by God to take charity from people to purify them. خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً. Why? Quran says, تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا. You purify them by taking money from them, because they will be getting rid of attachment to money, which is the root of problems. حب الدنيا رأس كل خطيئة. So we should not make sure that we have proper timing for salat, proper location for salat. We make sure that, for example, the teachers, the staff, everyone is present at the time of prayer, so the students are encouraged. It's not enough, even if you do all these things. We should make sure that they develop love for salat, appreciation for prayer, thirst for prayer, like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when the time of salat was approaching, he was restless. And then when the time was there, was saying to Balal, Arihna ya Balal, please say the call for prayer and comfort us. Like, when you are very thirsty and you ask for water to quench your thirst. But the Prophet also said that, for me, prayer is like your hunger and thirst. The desire for prayer is like your hunger and thirst. But when you have water or when you have food, your hunger and thirst are over. But for me, the prayer is never over. I just want to pray and pray and pray. The same is with charity. You would never be if you are a charitable person, you would never be satisfied with any record. You would not say, okay, I have helped 100 people or 1,000 people and that's enough. A person who is charitable, a person who has developed love for other human beings, as long as there is one person in the world suffering, he is not satisfied or she is not satisfied. There is no limit. Those who have to pressurize themselves to be charitable, yes, after doing few things, then they feel they have done a lot, they will get tired, they will feel drained. But those who have developed love for others, they will never be tired. So, we need to make a culture of prayer and charity. And great part of it comes in the school and family and the community. A school, family, and community should work together to develop these things. I had some suggestions written for how to bring these into programs and activities, but I think it's better to stop. It's, I think, better that I stop and give you a chance to share your questions, your comments. And thank you very much for your patience. And thank you very much for all your efforts. May God accept and reward you generously for whatever you are doing to make sure that you leave a great impact on these individuals, which each of them is a trust of God. They are not only trust of their families, they are trust of God, trust of Imam Mahdi. And I thank you for all the good things that you do. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So I'm passing on the mic. If anyone has any questions or comments, raise your hand. Good question.
I think if you can just just go ahead and tell us towards the end you mentioned some practical tips that might help us a little bit along the framework that we're working on at the moment.
How much time we have?
I think we are all given about 10 minutes or so.
Okay. Can I share the screen with you?
Yes, you can. Should be able to.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. I try to be very quick. This is part of a paper I presented in a program for curriculum development in 2012. And I was reviewing, and today I was thinking that still I would say the same thing. So I'm just going to page 5 of my paper. I can share with you also these points if you are interested. So I have discussed different things about methods, etc. This part is about programs. So, for example, programs for occasions. Distribute calendars that include Islamic occasions for all teachers to plan ahead for. So before the academic year starts, we can have these calendars ready and highlight the occasions and the relevant subject that we want to work on. Have the parent-teacher committee work with the staff and administration to plan and execute productive activities for the occasion, other than just simply decorating the school or playing nasheeds and Muharram audio. For example, if it is like today, the 15th of Sha'ban, this is a great occasion to educate ourselves and create awareness about justice, about fraternity, about humanity. And it's not just enough to put, some, decorations or, give some sweets, etc. These are very important, but these are not enough. Choose one Islamic value per month that the entire school works on. Many of these values, of course, are common values. This value can be discussed during assemblies and infused in both the formal and informal curriculum. For example, 1 month we can work on honesty and make sure that this is properly absorbed. Maybe again, another year we come back to honesty. It's better than throughout the year we randomly mention different things and we don't get a chance to immerse into the core of the subject and make sure everyone understands and appreciates and has practiced for a month. Generosity, for example. Cleanliness. Cleanliness is a very important aspect of Islamic development, and I think everyone appreciates that. Post and consistently verbalize short hadiths or verses that emphasize a particular Islamic value. Create competitions that invite a student to show their understanding of an Islamic value using one of various disciplines: art, design, writing, poetry, building a model, comic strip. Assembly, prayer, dua to establish unity and love amongst one another and towards God and the Ahlul Bayt. Unfortunately, many times prayer is not as organized and as planned as the classes for different subjects. Prayer is left to the students or 1-2 people from the staff to supervise. Prayer must be the most organized, the best planned, and the most attended program. This is the way that they appreciate prayer. They must see that when they enter the prayer hall, it's better than any space in the school. When it comes to being tidy, to be organized, lighting, carpet, walls, everything should be inspiring. The best time, the best location. And this helps also them develop a sense of fellowship for each other, love. God has made prayer in the way that it's like a collective art, a collective performance. It's like a daily performance that we do together. We have Imam and we have the congregation. We do things together. This brings harmony. If they really understand what does it mean to stand next to each other in a prayer congregation, then they would never, be treating each other as strangers, let alone enemies, God forbid. Assembly, prayer, dua to establish unity and love amongst one another and towards God and the Ahlul Bayt. Occasional trips can also be very useful for the same purpose. Then there is something about methods. Do we have time? Five more? Okay. For example, when it comes to methods, keep up with the latest research on best practices and apply it in all classrooms, including akhlaq, spirituality class, including, not only exclusively. It should be in every class, but including. Hopefully you have classes on akhlaq and spirituality. All Islamic classes, and in particular akhlaq class, should be just as advanced and engaging as secular subjects, if not more. Presenting the material in an engaging and fun way will draw the students in and keep them hooked. As a staff, brainstorm ways to encourage students to practice different aspects of self-purification. Results vary based on environment, culture, school, etc. 3. How akhlaq or spirituality is presented to the students. This is what we should keep monitoring. Repetition alone is not effective. Expectations must be clearly stated. Instead of making a statement, show it and prove it. You cannot just say, don't tell the lies. We should show it and prove it via engaging activities such as anecdotes, small group activities, classroom discussions, analysis of scenarios, role play, case studies, projects, etc. Promote analytical thinking as opposed to simply having a student memorize what the teacher assigns to them or encouraging the students to blindly agree with the teacher. No, they should be analytically and critically involved, but in a guided way. Discuss with the students how to implement Islamic values in the public sphere. Connect Islamic values to the real world. Talk about what students go through in the public schools and show how I wrote this paper for madrasah, and of course some of you are involved in madrasah, some of you are involved in the weekday schools. So this was mainly for madrasah, that they should learn how to do in also public schools if they don't have Islamic schools, and show how best to tackle each problem from an Islamic perspective. Show how they can be a good Muslim regardless of the environment, and tell stories of pious individuals who have encountered similar or even worse situations. Encourage them to always ask themselves what the Prophet or any pious, wise person would do in certain situations and why. So they can use a kind of assimilation to realize what I should do if I can guess what this personality would do in this situation. Consult with experts in Islamic studies and the broader field of education. Then I have listed subjects. I think I stop here, and inshallah I can share the paper with you and you can read also yourself. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
Thank you, Sheikh. Inshallah, we hope that once you share this document with us, we will be able to go through it once again and a little bit more. Once again, if anybody's got any questions, comments,